Welcome back to Dice to Pixels. We've got a few things to talk about today, and we're going to go through just some random questions that we've built up over the last little while as well.
Yeah.
First thing that I wanted to bring up, I saw this on Kickstarter yesterday. It's been, actually, I think it was launched yesterday because it's got 29 days to go. It's a gaming table called The Monarch, and it's based in the UK, which is interesting because it kind of looks like an explicit, like a direct sort of answer to Wormwood no longer doing shipping sort of overseas.
Yeah.
And it looks decent. The quality doesn't look quite the same necessarily, but it's also like 790 pounds for a table instead of like 3,500 or whatever the hell it's going to cost. For
and
Wormwood.
even conversion into Canadian, that's pretty reasonable for that.
1,300 Canadian, we'll call it probably 1,000-ish US.
Yeah.
Pretty decent.
Yeah.
So, yeah. It will drop the link in the description, but if you're in the market for a game table and you're overseas, let's just say overseas, magnetic rails, it's got a game vault. It looks pretty good.
Yeah.
So check it out.
Yeah. A lot of my gents from England and Forever Gaming, the gaming clan there. Yeah. Like I like this. It looks really slick. It has that, it kind of has that old aesthetic, like that old, like kitchen, the old kitchen table kind of aesthetic to it that I really like.
Well, yeah, the title is an heirloom board game table, and it not only would it be an heirloom going forward, but it kind of looks like something that would be an heirloom already.
Yeah, it's got the big radiuses and everything else that kind of, and also frankly for like, you can't see my forearms, but like leaning against a table, that was actually one of the things that I always wondered about with the Wormwood modular tables. I haven't used one extensively, so I don't know, but you don't want it to be too hard on your forearms, and this has a really nice big curvature, so it might be actually nicer.
I like that there's only two finish options too, or wood options.
Yeah, well, I like that for two reasons. One, because less choice paralysis, and two, for somebody starting out, like for a company starting out, keep it simple.
Yep. Like all the organizers and the cup holders, like they have the little rail system on the side for all of that. And yeah, like I think it's pretty sharp.
I like
it.
It looks good. If it were a Canadian Kickstarter, I mean, shipping on tables is brutal. So you don't really want to be shipping to other countries if you can avoid it anyways. But if it were a Canadian Kickstarter, I'd be backing it right now, I suspect.
Yeah.
Because they look sharp and they have a nice game vault. So how far can you go wrong?
Yeah, right. And it's, like you were saying, it's cheaper than the Wormwood stuff.
Well, and more importantly, not that much more. I mean, given that it's made of solid wood, it's actually a really good price. I mean, even a half decent IKEA table made out of essentially pressboard is going to cost you $600-700 probably.
Yeah.
So 13 for one made of actual solid wood is pretty compelling. If I was in the UK, I'd be looking at it for sure.
Oh, yeah.
The other tabletop thing that I was looking at, which is also a gaming table-ish. I'd call it a gaming table accessory. They're calling it a gaming table. It's called Stage Top, and it is a 3D printable sort of elevated gaming table. So it essentially adds a gaming surface on top of your table, and it's completely printed out of sort of 8x8, like 8-inch by 8-inch squares. And they all lock together, and there's accessories that fit into them, and they've got different options for like the table surface. You can have like a wood texture or like a smooth texture. It looks pretty cool. Again, draw a link in the description. I'm not going to do it justice by describing it, but it's 48 US, I think it is, for all of the files, for the dice vaults and the table and everything else. Normally, I kind of scoff at 3D printable, like 3D printing file Kickstarters, but this one, like they did their homework. They did a lot of work on this. So the other thing is it's quick. They say anyways, that it's quick to set up and tear apart. Like they actually sort of advertise it as portable, like a travel thing. So might be interested to check out. If I decide that I want to spend, 12 hours printing a tabletop, I might get the files and check it out. But like they give the print times for all of the table sizes that they sort of recommend, and they're not short. It's like at least a weekend sort of thing of pretty much solid printing. So.
Yeah, and it's pretty cool. Like you were saying about how breaking it down, and it looks like in the little video they have on the Kickstarter here, they pack it all into what looks like one of those wicker baskets that kind of slides into an IKEA shelf or something.
Yeah, one of the cube shelves.
Yeah, it actually says just at the end of the video there, it's got like an asterisk, and it says that it's specifically meant to fit into the IKEA Kallax shelves, which is what like 90% of gaming rooms have as shelving. So
that's really smart.
Yeah, it looks really cool. And they've got some really kind of interesting accessories, and obviously I'm sure they'll have more in the future. One of them, it looked like it was a dice tower that rolls through the table, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, some really cool stuff.
Yeah, definitely cool, man. Like nice little alternatives to crazy expensive gaming tables, like just something, especially something like this is great because granted, you're not going to be able to kind of put a cover over it and let it sit for a few days or a week or something. But I mean, the portability,
it's not a game vault. Yeah. It sits on top. But at the same time, if you've got a coffee table or something, the nice thing is they show it overhanging a little bit. I don't know how, I wouldn't want to say how much it overhang, but you could turn a coffee table into a larger gaming surface.
Yeah. I personally, I love puzzling, but our place is really, really small, and there's no place really to puzzle other than the kitchen table, which gets used normally. And I like that they're doing it for puzzling too, because it's a little bit nicer than some of the, like you can get the like briefcase type things for puzzles, whereas this is nice when you're done your puzzle completely, you can just put it away someplace. I feel like the storage is a little bit easier even than those options too.
Yeah, I agree. And if you're obviously if you're curious, you're going to go and check out the Kickstarter, but the 2 foot by 3 foot table in sort of draft quality, they say, although it doesn't look that different with standard quality, it takes 4.5 kilos of filament, which is Canadian prices, what I would pay for filament right now, it's maybe $140 sort of thing at most. So you're talking about all in couple $100, maybe a little less if you're US for an entire table. So, I mean,
it's not terrible.
It's not. It's decent. Yeah. So that's cool. It was one of those Kickstarters that just immediately stood out as like, this is new. I haven't seen this before. And they've done their homework. They recommend what 3D printers to use. Oh, cool. They tell you all of the requirements. They have test prints and everything that they've shown. You can grab one of their Dice Tower STLs to do a test print just to make sure that it works with your printer and everything. I think it's great. So
I like this wheel counter accessory thing that they have.
Yeah. I gotta say, I'm considering backing it just for some of the accessories.
Yeah,
because they do actually have some good printable accessories.
The component holder is really neat. Component cups. Yeah.
That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. So
nice little alternatives for your gaming table needs.
Yeah. So that was my Kickstarter. I was browsing last night, but I think the sort of main thing that we were going to talk about a bit tonight, at least to kick things off, we were mentioning during I think it was the awards show, Chad had mentioned a boss fight, and I said we should do an episode on boss fights. What makes them good? What ones we hate? What ones we love? So I think we're going to chat about some boss fights a little bit. So Chad, you probably have way more opinions on this than even I do.
Chad, opinions?
I don't.
Okay. All right.
No.
Short episode.
Yeah. No, man, like even back in like the NES days, looking at some of the classic boss fights, I mean, you have like Bowser in let's go to the original Super Mario Brothers where, here's Bowser on one end of the bridge and then you're Mario. So you got to like kind of run under him or whatever. Like it's not crazily, like at the time it was just like, holy shit.
No, but that's an interesting place to start actually, because there's a question around sort of speed running bosses. Because of course, Mario speed running, you can absolutely speed run the boss. That's kind of the point.
Yep.
I don't know if I if I think that's good or bad. I mean, obviously, it kind of kills the speed run of a game if you can't speed run a boss somehow. But like the Mario bosses were so easy to just like almost bypass entirely. You just had to jump at the right moment.
Yep.
But I mean, for what they were working with, those were some pretty good
Yeah.
boss fights.
But even like in it, like just that one encounter, like, so with the Super Mario Brothers, it was always the bridge, and even halfway through, he'd start throwing like a shit ton of hammers at you or whatever,
Yep.
you know. But then when they came back to Bowser in Mario 3, that encounter was completely different.
Yeah,
because like you see all the bricks on the floor.
Yeah.
And he's shooting fireballs at you, but then wherever you're standing, he'll jump in the air, and that's where he drops and breaks the bricks. So you got to like basically make him fall into a pit.
Yeah, the make the boss kill himself option, which has become, I mean, I wouldn't go so far as to say that was the first instance of it. I'm sure it wasn't.
Yeah.
But it's certainly the most memorable for me. And that's something that's been copied a lot over the years. Not the exact mechanic, although that has to an extent as well.
Mhm.
But the idea that like the boss is sort of invincible, you just have to let them kill themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, like that. Those were cool. I look at basically all of the Mega Man, like any boss from Mega Man. How you were always it was like rock paper scissors, that series, where if you had a weapon, except for Mega Man 2, because Metal Blades just basically killed everything.
Sure.
But like there was always a weapon to like combat another boss, and sure, like I guess a lot of the boss encounters were more or less like the same thing. You're 2D playing or whatever. But it was interesting just trying to figure out which weapon works on what boss, and trial and error kind of stuff.
The weakness system, where you've got specific loadouts that you need to use, which again, probably not the first, although certainly one of the first that I remember.
Yeah.
But that again, very, very common with all bosses these days, like World of Warcraft, for instance. Like you gotta have your specific loadout for this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was like when I was playing. I don't think it's changed.
Yeah.
But what do you think about like, we'll start with those two, of Mega Man versus Mario, 1 or 3 or 2 if you're into that.
Yeah.
What do you like more?
I kind of always preferred the Mega Man stuff, just because there was always more bosses. There was like, you look at the many incarnations of Dr. Wily when you had to fight him at the end, and how many times you had to fight him at the end, like 1 time, 2 times, 3 times. Like there was just different forms and different strategies. And again, like the fun part of it was trying to figure out what weapon worked best in certain situations. So there were countless times where we would like Jim and I, my buddy Jim and I, we would be like, oh crap, maybe try this weapon. Oh, no, okay, well try this one next. And then like we die. It's like, okay, that's the one. Like, well, and you just carry on. Like a lot of the trial and error, I guess a modern take on that would be, to an extent, I'd say like the Souls games.
I was going to say the same thing. It's like the very earliest incarnation of the sort of Souls genre.
Yeah, where the Souls games, you're trying to figure out the patterns of the enemy's attacks, and when to parry, when to dodge, when to attack.
Yep. And
it's just trial and error. And I think a big reason why a lot of people get turned off from it so quick is it's not your typical hack and slash where you just run in and be like, yeah, and you can just like take a couple hits, but you're fine, and you can just keep hacking away. Like, no, there's strategy to it, and that adds a lot of depth to it.
Yeah, you can't just out-equip your well, I mean, you can, but it's a very specific sort of out-equipping your boss. It's not just, oh, well, I've just gained 18 levels and all of the epic equipment, and now I can just go and thrash through everything. It's not that. Unless
you're using some of those insane magic builds that I've been seeing in Elden Ring that like basically like, this is the enemy's health bar. Oh, what a fight.
What about you, Sarah? Any sort of old, like retro bosses that you can think of that stand out? Did you play Sonic at all?
No.
Chad, did you play Sonic at all? No, not so much?
I did, but I don't know. I liked the Sonic games. I just
So So I always sort of I played both. One of my buddies had a Sega and I had a Nintendo, and we'd even swap occasionally. But I always kind of saw Sonic as like most of the game was better, which also newer. So the controls and the speed and everything was super cool, and it was fun. And Sonic speedruns are still to this day one of the only speedruns that I personally actually really like watching. But Robotnik was some of the worst boss fighting, in my opinion, that I ever played as a kid, because it was as repetitive as Bowser in a lot of ways.
Okay.
But not like, I don't quite know how to explain it. It was so repetitive and not really very rewarding. Not that Mario should be rewarding, because it was always just the princess is in another castle. But I always felt Robotnik was like the weak point. The boss fights in Sonic, I always felt were really a weak point compared to Mario. We'll say 3, because I think that was timeline wise, that's close.
Because it was always like finding which way you could bump into him.
Yeah, exactly. It was just like, okay, well, how am I going to do my dash attack against him this time?
Yeah.
Pretty much was it. There was very little creativity. And I feel like there wasn't a ton of creativity in a lot of the Mario boss stuff. But for some reason, maybe because it didn't try to be creative, it just sort of like, yep, here's another boss, kill him and move on.
To be honest, I kind of feel that way about basically all boss fights in general.
Yeah.
Like, some of them do have some interesting mechanics to them, but like, I hate boss fights. They're boring. Just give me lots and lots of level. See, that's just the way I like playing, is just, I find leveling and just doing the stuff rewarding versus like, oh, I gotta fight this boss in this closed encounter. And
yeah, I can feel you on that. I think that's why oh God, please don't let me make a complete ass of myself here. God of War is the one where boss fights, it's like the epic fights where you have to do different button combinations that it like tells you about. The original.
Okay, yeah.
That was the original God of War, right?
Yeah.
The first one, yeah.
Not Gears of War. I'm not making a complete ass of it. Okay.
No, it was God of War. Yeah.
So I feel like that was sort of an attempt to kind of help with that, where it was like, we're going to make this boss fight like epic to watch, but we're also just going to basically tell you how to do it.
Yeah.
So you don't have to guess.
Yeah.
You get to watch.
I think that's actually a good example, because I hadn't even thought of them, like, just outside of the hit this button at this time.
Yeah.
Those a lot. Well, the final,
quick
time events, but like even usually the final boss battles in those games, they felt epic.
Yes.
So they had a fun feeling to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, by and large, I find a lot of boss battles just like, I don't feel rewarded at the end of it, other than like, oh, I've been working on this forever. Finally, I beat him. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Next thing, please.
I can move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a game that did a very poor job with boss fights, in my opinion at least, was like the original Pokemons. At least the ones that came to US. I don't know enough about Pokemon to know if there was Japanese versions before we got them, but like just it's another trainer with different types of Pokemon. Yay.
Yeah.
Obviously newer Pokemon games start doing much more with that, but the original Pokemon, I was just like, can I just
not
keep catching more?
Yeah.
Like, can I just not do this? This isn't entertaining. I don't enjoy this. It's not really challenging. It's just stupid. I'm sure there's many people that will hate me for saying that, but c'est la vie. So you didn't play Pokemon, right, Chad? No. Yeah.
No.
I haven't either.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
not my cup of tea.
Every time a new double games or whatever they are come out, I'm like, I kind of want to try this, but then I also don't want to spend $90 or $90. Thanks, Nintendo.
Yeah, we have you might have conceivably you've seen it already when this goes up, but we filmed a podcast all about how Nintendo is the worst for their game costs.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I agree. Like, I haven't played any of the more recent Pokemons for exactly that reason, but I did play the originals.
Mm-hmm. So I know you two were very big WoW players.
Yeah.
I've never played WoW. I have absolutely no idea how. Well, I mean, I'm sure I could figure it out, but I also don't really have that much of an interest in playing it. But I've seen some streamers stream some of the raids and just some of the boss encounters in that. How did you two feel about these raid encounters in WoW?
Well, I enjoyed them, but I also was always a healer, so I'm always paying attention to health bars. So I don't actually see a whole lot other than, oh my god, they're way down here now. Okay, I fixed it. It's all good. Put a Band-Aid on it.
They're low, hit 1. They're really low, hit 2.
That's it, exactly.
Sorry,
right
healers.
click or left click?
It depends entirely on the boss.
Mm-hmm.
I think they did a few really well. So full disclosure for anyone who hasn't watched much of our stuff, I stopped playing WoW originally when Burning Crusade came out. I have played some Burning Crusade. I have played some Lich King.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't done much since then, especially not raiding. So most of my experience comes from the earlier stuff. But I always thought that the Onyxia fight was pretty cool because it's like very distinct stages and you have to have a very coherent group, but the actual fight isn't that difficult. You just have to be like,
you have to pay attention.
Yeah, you have to pay attention. You have to be organized.
Yep.
You have to not screw each other over. I remember countless times shaming the person who moved during various steps. But I thought Onyxia was pretty well done. It's too long, mind you, but
I'm pretty sure they did end up shortening it when they redid it again. So there's Onyxia 90, 100, something like that. They redid it again and made it a little bit easier.
Level, not number of players, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Good. I'm like, if the raids are up to 90 players,
no. They dumped 40 altogether, and then they had re-released it. So at whatever level cap it was, I think it was Onyxia 80 actually, because I feel like it was Lich King. Could be wrong.
That actually, I think that rings a bell. Yeah. I think we even did that.
I remember doing that a few times, so I'm just assuming.
And then other, Ragnarok and Molten Core, which was the original sort of super baddie, I thought was a terrible fight. I didn't enjoy it in the least. Did you?
I never raided at that then because I came in towards the end of Burning Crusade.
Right. In my opinion, really uneventful.
I could see that he was like stuck in that one lava pool or something.
Yeah. It was just everybody, take out the boss in the center, and it was like, okay, at certain times you have to deal with ads or not shoot them or whatever. But like, it was boring, like really actually boring. But yeah, I can't think of any World of Warcraft bosses that like stood out as like, holy crap, this is amazing to me. I'm sure I'm not being fair, but I
think it was, I want to say Malagos.
That was the turtle?
No, the blue dragon.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where halfway through you end up having to choose a dragon to fly on.
Yes.
That was kind of interesting. I think that. But yeah, like even my memory of the fight against the Lich King is just a tank and spank.
Yeah, I would say the most memorable thing that ever happened with us in terms of boss fights in WoW was actually when we screwed up Onyxia, and it was myself, my brother, and one of his friends. We were the only 3 that were up, and this was back when Onyxia was the end, like the really tough boss, and it's a 40-man raid, and there were 3 of us, but we were all paladins, which were disgustingly difficult to kill at the time, and we kept going, and we actually, I still think we probably could have killed it, except that one of the guild members came on chat and said like, hey guys, I did the math based on how fast you're killing it, we're gonna be here for hours. It's like, oh, okay, fine. But like, that's when things went wrong, so I can't really chalk that up to like it was the best boss fight. I don't know. WoW never tickled my fancy on boss fights. It was all the outside. It was everything outside of raiding.
Yeah.
The raiding I just did to get the equipment.
Yeah.
Although it's not boss fights. Although I guess there were bosses involved. But the Arathi Highlands, the PvP raids that they added.
Oh yeah, Arathi Highlands is one of them.
I think that was it, something like that. Anyways, they were like 20v20, I think it was, and it was just a big PvP instance PvP brawl. Those were super fun, and there were bosses that you could like summon and everything else within that, and you did have to kill like the big bad at the other side.
Yeah,
those were, in my opinion, way more interesting because there were other players involved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's what was the one in Lich King that was at the very center there? I can't think of the name of it, but it was like in the wintry area, and then
Northrend.
Well, yeah, it's in Northrend, but it was in like not all of the levels there had snow everywhere.
It's been a while.
Oh man, Jesus,
Snowville.
There we go. Perfect. No yeah, but like you're fighting basically to capture the castle with that one, and then whoever wins gets to do, I think, a 3 boss raid inside, and then you have a chance to win a mammoth mount.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. There was some cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the actual like raids, I don't know, most of the bosses in there.
Yeah.
I don't remember being like super grumpy or hating any of them, but I also don't remember being like, this was a super fun fight that I would love to do again. Yeah, it was usually just, daily timer's up or weekly timer's up or whatever it was. Okay, let's do it again.
Yeah.
So
very similar to Destiny.
I was just going to ask you about Destiny.
So Vault of Glass was like the first raid in Destiny way back when. And to this day, that still probably is one of my favorite raids. They updated it for Destiny 2 and they changed a couple things here and there. With the last encounter, they made a couple of changes in just the whole process of finally getting to a DPS phase on Atheon. And it's so one of the biggest changes was you get teleported to one of two places, and it's either Venus or Mars in the game. Okay. And while you're there, you see these bright lights light up, and you have to shoot them in order to gain a buff that allows the people outside to see the same thing. And, you shoot them in order to get through. Well, they changed it so that what you see inside, the person that's on the outside sees the order that they appear, and they tell you which ones to shoot.
Oh, okay.
So that was like the biggest difference in D2 in the D2 remake of it, and it took a bit, but we got through it, and it's still fun. I still enjoyed playing that. The King's Fall raid, which a lot of people consider their favorite, it wasn't mine. I liked the raid up until the orcs fight in the original Destiny, and then I just felt that really that entire encounter was just ad clearing. And because you never actually damage orcs yourself. It's these big light mass bombs, that 4 of them that you have to detonate all 4 at the same time and protect. That's what actually damages orcs. Like you shoot them a couple times at the end, but I was like, this is lame. They changed that when they brought it back to D2, where you actually get to damage him, which is like, thank you, finally,
Yeah, I hate, well, that's maybe strong, but I do not like boss fights where they're invulnerable unless you do this specific thing. I'm all for, if you shoot them in their venting port, it'll do more damage, or if you do this combination of things, it'll do more damage. Yeah. Great. But listen, I'm still going to hurt them if I shoot them, right? Unless there's some legitimate reason that I cannot take down their shield or hurt them or anything else, literally physically impossible to hurt them, then let me do some damage. Yep. And obviously I'll probably lose the fight, but let me do some damage, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that, and again, Destiny, because I've played the living hell out of it.
Really?
Just a bit, just a little bit. There used to always be a way where, and a lot of people would use this in Nightfalls, which is like the high loot, the high difficulty, high reward kind of strikes. you would have these strategies so that you could burn a boss, like just literally kill them in like as little time as possible.
Right.
And lately they've been, and this is freaking annoys me, is when you see a life bar, but there's like 2 lines in it. And when you bring it down to a certain point, you know what I mean? And then they're invulnerable and all that crap. And
the transition is coming.
You have to run around over here and kill this specific golden enemy to get something to bring over to the coffee maker so that you can make a nice hot brew and give it to the boss so that it can relax and drop its shield, and then you can damage it again. Like, just I really, really hate that crap because especially like speedrunning isn't a thing in Destiny unless you're trying to get the best time in a specific mission. Sure. So when you come down to these encounters where, Christ, like you're being time gated by the boss, that I don't freaking like that at all.
I think the worst incarnation of that I've that I can easily remember, I'm sure there have been others, is Diablo 3. Whatever the spider queen is actually called, I forget what her name is, but it doesn't matter. Like, you'll be super powerful from doing greater rifts and everything, and you'll go in and you'll deal like 95% of her health in like a second, but then it triggers the cutscene where it runs away and some ads come in. It's like, can we just not?
Yeah.
Like, if you want to reduce the damage by 99.9% during that cutscene so that any normal player has to wait for the next phase, cool. But again, if I'm dealing like 1,000% of their health bar in a couple of seconds, just let me do it. Just let me kill them.
Yeah.
I don't need to wait for the damn cutscene.
Yeah.
So I feel your pain on that one.
Yeah. It's it's annoying as hell. And like that, I think that's the only example in Diablo 3 where they actually, like, the boss does something like that.
It's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking of any others. Like, Magda does some weird stuff. Yeah, actually Magda does the same basic thing, but at least that like is distinct like phases of the combat, whereas the spider is just like, I'm just going away from it. I'll be right back. Nothing changes. Like, doesn't become more powerful, doesn't change attacks or anything. Just no, just give me a second. I'm just going to run away. It's like, well, let's not. That's stupid.
The other thing too is roles in specific boss battles. See, so, and again with Destiny and going to the Vault of Glass encounter, normally, like, you could say like, okay, like you're going to go to wherever and you're going to be in there to shoot the things, and this person's always going to call out the stuff and whatever.
Yep.
But because it just pulls three people at random, you can't really have, like, everybody needs to kind of learn mechanics.
Right.
In order, so if you have 3 people that know how to, like, how everybody reads like the left to right, where the lights spawn, but then all 3 of them get teleported in.
Yeah. So you need specific roles in the fight, but it messes that up through random number generating.
Yep.
Yeah, that's I could go either way on that, honestly.
Yeah, that's kind of a weird design in my opinion. But...
Little weird.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, on the one hand, that does kind of suck because, you know, it's giving you this specific thing that you have to do and then also kind of screwing with you doing that.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it's like, well, why shouldn't everybody learn all of the roles in a boss fight in a game like Destiny? I could go either way on that.
Yeah.
But it would annoy me, I think, too. Yeah. I just, like, thinking objectively, I'm like, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I feel you.
So, and getting off of Destiny, the other kind of boss encounters that I think are dog shit are Bullet Sponge.
Oh yeah.
Bullet Sponge. Yeah. And the one series that was notorious for this, they changed it a bit, but The Division.
Mm-hmm.
When The Division first came out, it's a fun third person, like, online MMO where you're playing in basically the pandemic aftermath of New York. And then the sequel was in Washington, DC. It's it's good, but a lot of the enemies, a lot of the boss encounters were, holy hell, they were bullet sponges.
Yeah. Anthem was really bad for that.
Mhm.
Anthem, I enjoy. Anthem had other problems too, but I enjoyed some of the mechanics around the boss fights, mini bosses and full bosses. But bullet sponge was like its bread and butter.
Yeah. Like they changed. So in the Division, they changed it in the Division 2 where they had like an armor bar. And so if you've seen like an armored enemy, you like as you damage them, the armor thing would break.
Yep.
But then once their armor was gone, it was like a few hits to the head and they're dead. It's like, okay, cool. But if a guy's running up to me wearing a tank top, a baseball cap, a pair of like khakis,
then he shouldn't have the heaviest armor.
He shouldn't be having like 3 armor bars.
Yeah.
Like, I get it's a game. Sure. Like it's a game. It's supposed to have these little obstacles and stuff, but that actually reminds me of something that I want to bring up. But first, Sarah, you haven't said anything in a while. Do you have any boss fights that are on your mind? It's okay if you don't.
I don't.
The big house in Power Wash Simulator.
Oh my no!
Yeah.
I can't say it because it's the last one. Fine. The big temple at the very end of Power Wash Simulator. No, the church. Yeah.
Okay. Very, very hard to clean.
Yeah, it takes forever. There's a lot of nooks and crannies.
I believe that.
So that's where everybody's putting their gum while they're sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Among other things.
Also, I started playing Hard Space. What's it called?
Shipbreaker.
Hard Space Shipbreaker this week.
Okay.
And yeah, some of those are. I don't want to explode myself. You're breaking down ships in space.
Okay.
With laser cutters and stuff. And yeah, there's like still live pipes for fire stuff. And yeah, it's satisfying when you finish them, but sometimes it's very aggravating taking large pieces to be destroyed, as Chad saw last night.
Sitting there yelling at me like, how do I do this? And so it was 4 gas lines going to like an engine.
Oh yeah.
But there was 4 cut points right at the pipes going to the engines. And there was a cutoff at the end of the tunnel, like at the end of the fuel to turn it off. And Sarah's like, well, how do I get here? And I'm like, well, shoot the things and then go to the end. Yeah, but it's going to light on fire. And it's like, well, maybe that's the point.
It was the point.
It was the point.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
The screams of,
So we'll get right back to boss fights in a minute, I'm sure, because there are other things that I want to talk about, I think. But one of the things that your comment about a like tank top really triggered this. I hate games where you fight like this absolute badass with like this gigantic sword or this like amazing armor or something, and then they drop like a few gold coins.
Yeah.
Oh.
And like I get it. You can't drop everything the enemy has on them, but at the same time, I'm like, I can see the sword on the ground. Can I just pick it up?
That makes me think too of Scott Pilgrim versus the World when he beats the X's, and like the first one's like it falls down, they fall down dead and turn into coins, and he's like, oh great, coins, picks it up, he's like, oh, it's not even enough for bus fare.
Love it. Yeah, that's and actually that's true of like board games, tabletops, like I think all games have that. And like I said, I get it. You can't, otherwise you could kill the first town guard you see and have like really well-made armor and everything. And like I get it, but it's still, I'm like, I can see the weapon. Can I just take it, please?
Yeah.
Please?
I understand that it let him fucking cast Wish every single freaking time, but right? Come on. Why do I have to wait a week?
Yeah. That's always been sort of, especially with bosses, like it's almost better in some cases when the bosses, obviously a tank top with 3 armor bars is also stupid, but it's almost better when the bosses are just really hard for some other reason than having like this like mecha armor or something like that makes them invincible. And then when you kill them, it's like, no, you don't get that. You get like whatever was in their pockets. That's what you can have. It's like, oh,
you can't have their sword, but you can have the switchblade that's slightly similar, but not as powerful.
Right. Yeah.
That sucks. I'm trying to think of examples, or it's even like some summons that you get in Final Fantasy, like when you fight.
Sure.
And I can't remember which one it was, but like when you fight Bahamut and you have to fight him in order to like gain the ability to summon him, and he's just dropping like freaking planets on you and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then you get the summon and it's like 399. Like, you know, does like nothing. Like the summoning sequence alone, you're just like, oh man, these guys are all gonna die. And then it's like, oh crap.
Yeah, I gotta say, Final Fantasy had some of the best boss fight, and I'm sure it still does. I haven't played the more recent ones, but I'm sure it still does have some of the best boss fights. But yeah, it definitely had that sort of issue where it was like, you were so powerful a minute ago. What happened? What did I do wrong? Interestingly, Tibia, which I've talked about many times.
No.
Yeah, right?
Never heard of it.
It actually did a good job. There weren't really boss fights in Tibia. There are now, and they added them many years ago, but it's been out for so long. When I played it, there weren't really any boss fights. But the summon creature spell that the druid gets, it summoned an exact copy of the creature. Now they capped it at a certain point. You couldn't summon like dragons and stuff. But it summoned the exact same thing, which was kind of nice because like, cool. If I stick like this archer against this other archer, it is an even match. Mine isn't somehow weaker or some nonsense. And I did like that because that annoys the crap out of me in games when it's like, yes, I got this super awesome thing that will help me out because it was wrecking my stuff. And then 2 minutes later, you're summoning. It's like, I shouldn't have bothered. It's crap.
It's like squeezing a whoopee cushion.
Yeah, it's just it's really, really sad when that happens. I don't like that power mechanic where it's just, oh, no. Now that you have it, it's weak. It's like,
It lost a lot of its power.
Yeah. At least if they explain it, I'm kind of okay with it. But usually they're just like, oh, no. It's just because you've got it. It's weak. Then we're not going to even... There's not even a story arc of like it lost power. It's just, no. You suck. You don't get the power. Yeah.
I think some other... another memorable boss encounters, and it just dawned to me. Soul Reaver.
Oh, yeah.
Legacy of Kain's Soul Reaver, which came out on the original PlayStation, and there was a version on the Dreamcast, which cleaned a lot of the textures up and stuff. You play as Raziel, who's been basically a lieutenant of Kain's army, who was killed because he evolved wings before Kain did. Kain being the king of the vampires. So they threw him into the abyss, which it's water, vampires, water, not good. And it just killed him. But he's resurrected as a wraith, a soul reaver.
Okay.
So instead of a thirst for blood, he has to eat souls in order to survive. And basically throughout the game, you're going through Kain's empire thousands of years later, when a lot of his brethren have evolved into these monstrous just forms. But each one, there was a specific way that you had, like you couldn't physically damage these bosses. They were like almost like puzzle encounters. So the one boss had the ability to phase through bars and stuff, and you had to lure it into this center section and then trigger a meat grinder thing to come down and smash it, which then allowed you to absorb its soul, and then you could go through bars and stuff, but only in the spectral realm.
Right.
Each one had its own little thing. I think the one boss, Zephon, you had to light these little insect eggs on fire and throw it at its stomach, and then it would ingest it and light on fire. And Rahab, who evolved so that he didn't have his weakness to water and basically thrived in it. You had to basically smash windows so that sunlight would come down and burn them.
Oh, okay.
yeah, it was. They were neat, different. It wasn't your typical boss encounter where you're like, yeah. Oh crap, I better move. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Little puzzles, I guess.
Yeah, puzzles. That was a lot of what World of Warcraft bosses turned into. Was just everything was its own little puzzle, and if they're good puzzles, I think that's fine. But a lot of the times they aren't. I think I personally generally prefer like a lot of mini bosses to like major bosses. There was a Dreamcast game, I think it was called Armada, and basically it was a sort of 2.5D space game, and you'd go down to a planet, you'd kill a bunch of stuff, and then there would be sort of the big bad, but they weren't like bosses, they were just mini bosses, and you just fought them over and over and over. And they all had like their little like quirks, but there was just sort of it was more like Diablo 3's champion packs, where it was like there's just sort of an assortment of attributes that they can have, so each one's ostensibly different, but eventually you see repeats. I like that kind of thing, like Diablo 3's champ packs, elite packs. I liked that mechanic. I don't know if either of you really played Diablo 3 very much, but yeah, you're a Diablo guy. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I really like that mechanic of the sort of
when you'd run into the pack of them and they all had like a unique tether ability or something like that.
Yeah, was it called soul chains?
Soul chains, and they'd throw up the walls, and so you couldn't get to them, and you had to like run around. And
oh god, Waller and
the multiplier
Arcane.
one.
Yeah, multiplier was bad. Waller and whatever the spinning arcane.
Oh yeah, the arc bolt or something.
Yeah, whatever that's called. I forget actually what the name of it was. Yeah. But that was one of the banes. Was the oh no, I'm in a wall, and oh no, I'm dead. I'm done. Yeah. But I like that, and having them come up randomly in the world instead of like pre-scripted fights. I personally think that's my favorite sort of boss interaction. I mean, it's okay to have like the big bad in the game, obviously, but the ones that just like, oh, you reached the end of the stage, here's a boss fight. You reached the end of the stage, here's a boss. Not really my thing. I don't love that.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of what you were saying, Sarah.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
I also liked a lot of the Zelda encounters. A lot of the Zelda bosses always seem to incorporate an item that you found in the dungeon that they were in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
that I liked. Yeah.
I dug that. That a lot. I think one of the more memorable ones was in Twilight Princess, where you get this like gear top kind of, you could ride the thing, and you fought this big dragon skull, and you had to like basically spin around this central pillar while switching from the pillar to wall to avoid this thing's fire until you finally got to the top to hit it, which would bring it down and crash, and then you come down to attack it a bit.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it was just
it took me a while, but yeah, I remember that fight. Yeah,
it was just like such a fast-paced freaking like, because you had to be like right on, like watching these fireballs come at you and just
yeah.
But it was so like, it's one of those like like.
Yeah. The sort of, I mean, any boss fight that's rewarding is a good boss fight, right? Like that's an easy test. But in general, I feel like for me, give me an extended play time where like throw, mini bosses in and whatever, throw like hordes, like Left 4 Dead did this with the, if you're not moving fast enough, we're going to send a zombie horde. And I like that, where it's like, we're still going to make it challenging, but we're not like, there were sort of the scripted parts where it's like, okay, you run up against the whatever wailing ghost lady things are.
The witches. That's it.
Yep. I couldn't remember what they called them. I'm bad for that. But in the meantime, like the struggle was like, if I'm not moving fast enough, they're going to come after me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that kind of mechanic where it's like, sure, give me something that eventually you're going to throw something major in my way. But in the meantime, if I'm dicking around and spending too much time getting gear or money or levels or whatever, and you want me to like feel that sort of pressure, there are ways to do that that aren't just, you got to the next boss, better kill it.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a question then.
Oh.
Ooh.
Most memorable boss encounter in a game, or even in a tabletop game, in any kind of game, just a memorable boss encounter.
Well, it's cheating because it was really recent, and I'm actually not going to say what it was, but you know what it is. It's when we reached the end of Wonderbook.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I figured as much.
There's a reason we're not saying what it is because it would spoil the game. And
Chapter 6.
Yes.
Yeah. That was cool.
That was
I think
cool.
that's one that I'll remember for a very long time.
That was very cool.
The Onyxia thing, I still remember very clearly. That's hard.
It is.
I distinctly remember the Bowser fight.
Yep.
Yeah, a bunch of the Final Fantasy VII ones, but they all kind of like those ones run together for me a little bit. Like they were all good, but I struggle a bit to be like this specific boss fight is where this happened versus like, yeah, I liked most of the Final Fantasy VII bosses.
Yeah.
So
all of the boss fights I can think of, I only remember because I dislike them so much.
That still makes them memorable.
That's
like
true.
in the boss fight in the first level of the original Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, yeah.
I can't remember what the guy's name is. But
Tiny.
God.
Wasn't it not Tiny Tiger?
No, because
wasn't
it was
Tiny Tiger.
the chief guy.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Aku or something?
No, that's the mask. Papu.
Papu.
Yeah.
Is it Papu? Yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
You're speaking just nonsense to me right now.
That's Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
I missed Crash Bandicoot. That actually makes way more sense now. Okay. I was like, yeah, that suddenly makes sense. Right. What about you, Chad?
Mine, and this is memorable for a few reasons, but the boss fight against the End in Metal Gear Solid 3. It takes place over 4 big forested areas, and you're basically playing cat and mouse, and you're in a sniper battle with this. The End is like this he's an old man who he's always falling asleep, but you get into this forest encounter and he wakes up and then his eye like pops out and he's a sniper and boom, he shoots you.
Yeah.
So, but then it can go on for quite some time. I think the longest it took me to finally kill him was like a half hour or something. But you're basically, you're hiding, you're staying hidden, and you're trying to pinpoint his location by using thermals or like watching for footprints, listening to see if you can hear him breathe because he'll fall asleep and he'll start snoring. And then sometimes you can see the Z's coming up from his head.
That's really cool.
And if you can sneak up on him, hold him up, and then he drops, I think, a dog tag or something, and some ammo or whatever. Or if you see him, you can nail him, you can shoot him.
Nice.
But oh man, like just like for a memorable encounter,
that's really cool.
It's super, super cool. And you were always like trying to just stay on his ass, whatever. But the funny thing is, you could completely skip that fight at one part in the game where there's a cutscene that happens and he's in a wheelchair. And as the cutscene ends, a guard is rolling him away. But if you're quick enough, you can pull out a sniper and aim right at the door where they're going and shoot him in the head and kill him instantly.
That's awesome.
So then you don't have to fight it at all. Or you can save your game there, go into your system and set the time on your PlayStation like hours ahead. And when you load it back up, you'll find him, but he's dead because he died of old age.
That's great.
That's
it
awesome.
was nuts.
It
was nuts.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
And the Metal Gear series, they had some memorable boss encounters.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
yeah, but that one really, really stands out. I think that one was by far and away like one of the more unique.
That's
Yeah.
so fun.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so good.
Oh yeah. I'm trying to remember like some really old school games that had boss fights, but honestly, I'm struggling a bit. I mean, I know a lot of them did, but like memorable ones, I'm struggling a bit. Obviously, Pac-Man with the ghosts. That was like the hardest boss fight ever.
Every level was a boss fight.
Yeah, right? Just a continuous one.
I think you just described Souls games.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Some of the Assassin's Creed bosses were kind of fun. Although I gotta say again, well, first of all, those games were very repetitive. And second of all, again, I'm not sure the bosses were any more fun than just the like getting into a group of baddies and beating them senseless while killing them.
The first Assassin's Creed that came out, I would say that they were puzzles as well, because the whole you could do every single one and never have to lift a finger. You could just there was always like a stealthy way to do it. I'm trying to remember there was one where you're going after a pastor at a mission.
Yep.
And you could blend in with a group of priests walking around.
Yeah.
And you just walk around the map and you wait until you get close enough, or this guy walks towards you, and then you just kill him.
Yeah, you just stab him. Yeah, I remember that. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though actually, I think that's one of the reasons why I did like the first one. I actually didn't play most of the Assassin's Creed series, but I definitely played through the first one, and that was actually one of the things that I liked was you can go in brawling, or you can play it smart. And I like it when games give you that choice. Just in general, not even restricted to bosses, just in general. I like it when games give you that choice.
Yeah, like learning the information to fully discover like where a target's going to be, what their pattern is going to be, like what they do. They're
taking an investigative approach to it, basically.
Yeah. It was interesting. I mean, the first Assassin's Creed game was very limited with what you could do, and they opened it up with Assassin's Creed 2 by really giving you the freedom to just do it how you want. There's certain encounters in Assassin's Creed 2 where, yes, you're going to have to fight.
Yeah.
I think the first assassination you do in that game, you make it quite well known that you killed this person and end up having to run from a ton of guards. But 2 is still one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I've never actually finished any of them.
No?
I got partway through the first one, and because it was so repetitive, I got bored and stopped playing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can feel that. Like it was very repetitive.
Also, the voice acting was
not amazing.
Altair was very bad in that first game.
He was not great.
Yeah. I can't think of any other boss fights that stand out to me, to be perfectly honest.
The only other one I could think of is like maybe in the God of War at the very like the final boss fight, where you're the size of a building fighting in the bay.
Fighting Ares,
Yeah, that was like cool from a cinematic point of
Fair
view,
enough,
but that's just a basic brawler. But
Mother Brain in Super Metroid, when you initially get to her and she's just still the brain in the glass tube, and you break the thing and you shoot her a couple times with the missiles, and then everything falls and her head falls to the ground. And then her eye opens and she stands up as like a screen-sized boss and just freaking annihilates you. And right as she's about to give that killing blow, that's when the big baby Metroid comes and sucks all her power away, gives it to you, but in the process is killed.
Yeah.
That was a memorable one too, because then you're supercharged. You're like, you got the boss's weapon in that.
Yeah.
And you the hell out of him.
Yeah. And also like rewarding from a story perspective, which actually I was just thinking when you were talking about that, there's even some similarities there. Portal, when you finally go and fight the ending of Portal, you don't get anything for it really or anything like that, but that was pretty rewarding too, where it was like the entire game has been coherently leading up to this moment, and the fight itself, the mechanics were kind of fun. It was pretty simple, but fun.
Yeah, Portal 2 is pretty good too because of space ball.
I don't think I played Portal 2.
It's good.
I suppose I should.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's co-op.
There is a co-op option in it, but not main story.
Oh.
Still. Yeah. Still fun.
It's still fun. Not if you're playing with my sister.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think we're pretty much at time here.
Yeah. Boss fights, love them or hate them, they're here to stay.
Yeah, I mean, a good boss fight can make your day, and a bad. I think the nice thing about boss fights is, generally speaking, a bad one is pretty quickly forgotten, unless it legitimately impedes your progress for an extended time. It's kind of like, that wasn't very good, but we're on to the next part. Let's go, which is nice. So.
Train kept a rolling.
Yep. All right. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Hit the like button and the subscribe if you're into it. We have a Discord, which you can find below. And we love you so much. We'll see you next time.